So of course, today we're going to talk about market basket analysis. So essentially, this is a technique which uses rules of association, and we'll try to see if there is a bunch of things which are brought together. We did talk about market basket analysis very briefly the first week. So the idea is, if you're able to identify as a marketeer or as the manufacturer or the retailer, if you are able to identify a group of things which are getting consumed together, you will be able to take advantage of this idea and then group all these things together and place it in a suitable way. So one way this could benefit us, say for instance, the common example given of breakfast items consumed, that is bread, milk, butter, eggs, and all of those things. So one way to do this is keep bread and butter together. So even if you have not intended to buy butter, you would actually be queued to buy it because you're there at that particular corner of that aisle. The other way to sort of test if it's more effective is keep bread at one corner and put bread at the opposite corner somewhere else. And in doing so, you're forcing the customer to walk all the way from this part to the other part of the shop. And then hoping that he would also pick up orange juice and cornflakes along the way, or he might pick up any other impulse buy. So to test it out in reality, you will have to actually, try this in a shop floor, see what works. I mean, whether to club it together and keep it in the same place, or keep it at two different places and sort of make the customer move around so that he's also exposed to more products which he possibly could buy. Okay, so we'll talk about the mathematics of this a little bit, market basket analysis. So essentially, we have two sets of items, what we call this antecedent and consequent. Both of these are either one item or a list of items. So an antecedent is an item which you've come to purchase primarily, and consequent is what you would perhaps buy after buying the antecedent. Something like, let's say if you've come to buy Band-Aid, you might also buy Dettol or Savlon. Or if you've come to purchase a toothpaste, or you might actually buy a toothbrush. So buying one thing might actually trigger the purchase of the other. So list of one item or a group of item which gets bought first is the antecedent. The one which gets purchased as a consequence of the first thing is called the consequent. Okay, the classical example here, of course, is the bread and egg example. So if you buy bread and egg, very likely you could also purchase milk. So again, importantly, implication is co-occurrence, not causality. Okay, it is very likely that they will be consumed together or will be purchased together. It doesn't mean that this causes that, because mathematicians are very careful about the use of the word causality. So yeah, so that is a separate topic in itself. So basically, they insist on the fact that this doesn't imply causality. So we define item set as a list of all the items in the antecedent and the consequent. So in this instance, the item set is actually bread, egg, and milk. So if you have an antecedent of bread and egg and a consequent of milk, then you have an item set comprising bread, egg, and milk. Now, to measure the strength of association, we have three metrics that we use. The first is what is called as support, second is confidence, and the third is lift. So let's say support roughly gives an idea about how frequent an item set is in all of the transactions. Suppose your item set 1 just has bread, because I did say that item set could only be one or a group of items. So in our instance, if it's only bread, and item set 2 is shampoo, so we can be reasonably sure that the consumption of bread or the purchase of bread is more frequent than the purchase of shampoo. Okay, there will be far more transactions containing bread than those containing shampoo. And hence, we say that item set 1 or bread will have a higher support than shampoo. So it's just the count. It's actually the fraction of times bread will appear in people's shopping basket. So to calculate support, all that you do is number of times bread is purchased divided by the total number of transactions. Similarly, I mean, shampoo, the same thing. So if you do this, so intuitively we know that support for bread would be more. Now, suppose we have another data set and another item set rather, and if it's bread and butter, and second item set is bread and shampoo, so we can sort of be again sure that bread and butter would actually get consumed quite frequently and very often, and therefore the frequency that the probability that bread and butter would actually have a higher support than bread and shampoo. So many transactions will have both bread and butter, but maybe not bread and shampoo. They're not thought of together when you purchase, right? So item set 1 will generally have a higher support than item 2. That is pretty intuitive. And mathematically, support is the fraction of the total number of transactions in which item set occurs. Basically, what it means is the number of times both the items under consideration is purchased divided by the total number of transactions. So in the language of probability, this is called the joint probability. The joint probability of occurrence of X and Y, which is denoted by probability of X intersection Y. Okay, so basically joint probability, both to understand very simply, it is like count all the times these two things are bought together and divided by the total number of transactions in our records. Now, the other interesting metric which is used is what is called as confidence. So confidence is nothing but the conditional probability. Suppose we consider the antecedent to be bread and milk to be the consequences. Every time you buy milk, you are reminded of buying milk. Every time you buy bread, you're reminded of buying milk. So if you take that assumption, so we are trying to see that if you have purchased milk, what is the likelihood that you would have purchased bread? So the conditional probability means what is the probability that you would have purchased B? That is, you would have purchased A with the full knowledge that B has already been purchased. Like if you are told that milk is purchased, then you're trying to figure out what is the probability that bread is also in the market, in the basket. So the example specifically we're talking about here is of all the transactions containing, say, toothpaste, how many also had toothbrush on them? So by common knowledge, we know that it should, be like, consumed together, as in very likely. So if you purchased toothbrush, there's a good probability that you would have also purchased toothpaste. So technically, confidence is defined as the conditional probability of occurrence of antecedent given the consequence. This class is really silent. I'm not sure. You said getting received well, because I've not asked people to turn on the camera.
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any concerns anyway, please let me know.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please, can I request you all to turn on the cameras, please? That will be helpful, because otherwise I don't know, because I'm just talking to an empty screen. So at least I can see your body language and I know that, okay, you're catching me. I suppose it's nothing too complicated, right? Okay, great. Yeah. Fine. So where was I? Okay. So confidence is the conditional probability of A given B. That is which is actually mathematically defined as probability of A and B divided by probability of B, right? So, okay. So let's say, what do you think would be a confidence for butter and bread? So because these things are commonly purchased together, you would imagine that their value would be close to 1, because they both get purchased simultaneously. It would be very close to 1. What about yogurt and milk? Can I get a response? What do you think would be confidence for yogurt and milk?
Maybe low, because if you have yogurt, you may not want milk, and vice versa. Well, I mean, they are sort of substitute in a way, though not exactly a substitute, but somewhat.
Okay,
it will be very low.
Okay, you're thinking it's low. How about the others, please? Any other difference in opinion?
Fairly low, sir.
Okay, but I thought it would be high because whenever I go, I buy all the dairy products together. I would buy milk and curd and cheese and everything together because I go to one corner and it's quite surprising that you're saying it's low. It's not true. When you buy dairy products, you buy all of them together, don't you? Or am I the aberration here?
Sir, it may vary from person to person highly because of the food habits. So,
Okay.
I mean, if I have yogurt, I generally do not
Skip.
buy milk and vice versa. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. But
So,
yeah,
is
please.
it if we buy yogurt, we will buy milk, or if you buy milk, we will buy yogurt?
Yeah, either ways. I mean, saying here in this,
Okay,
the
so
way
then it would be high. So,
yeah, exactly. Here it is saying that if you purchase yogurt, what will that lead to the purchase of milk is the question. So the way I'm interpreting, I mean, when I thought about it, I'm like, whenever I go to buy the dairy section, I would buy all milk-related products together and stock it for a week. So I would imagine, but Deepak is making an interesting point. Yeah, sign. So it goes either way.
so I guess it would be high.
High, right? Yeah, great. Okay, so even I thought it was high. What about the others? What do the others think?
I think it will be high.
High, right? High, Kiran. Okay. All right. Okay, fine. So, but let's look at the other one. What about milk and toothbrush?
Low. Very low.
Low.
Very low.
Low. Okay. Can I? What about other people? What do the like? Any difference in opinion? Because this is a tricky question if you think about it.
again, sir, it may depend. I mean, on the whole, it will be low, but for a certain set of people, say for kids, I mean, if I'm purchasing for kids, there may be a high correlation.
It's actually, if you think practically,
Should be negative.
negative. Why sign? Because probability can never be negative. Probability is between 0 and 1.
Correlation can be negative. That's why.
So in probability terms, it can be high. I mean, depends on what
Yes.
specific market segment or what
So
specific.
here we are actually measuring it with probability. Correct. This is conditional probability sign. How can it
Okay.
be negative?
So okay. So yes.
Right. Condition. It's probability. I mean, it can be any number between 0 and 1. It cannot be negative for sure.
So then it would be near to 0.
Okay, near to 0. Any other difference in opinion? Okay, now if you think about this, specifically, I want you to reflect about this. See, milk to toothbrush, okay? Essentially, what does it mean? It is trying to measure the conditional probability, okay? If toothbrush is purchased, what is the probability that milk is already in the basket? Okay, and technically, this is probability of milk and toothbrush divided by probability of toothbrush. Correct? Okay, I think you're not comfortable with what I just said. This particular thing here, milk to toothbrush, what it says, if I have to find the conditional probability, it is probability of milk and toothbrush. That is all the time milk and toothbrush got purchased. Okay, and you divide it by the number of times toothbrush got purchased. That's correct, right? That is this what we're trying to ascertain. Okay, you would actually notice that this value will also be very high. Why? Simply because milk is something which is almost bought by people on a daily basis. So in any let's say basket that you look, you would find milk is always there. Invariably, it's always there. And because it's such a frequently bought like product, so even if toothbrush is a rare event, let's say you purchase it once a month or once in 2 months or whatever, but because milk is always there, you club milk with anything, you will always find there is high amount of conditional probability. That if you look for specifically, take all the baskets in which toothbrush is there, and you look if milk is there, milk will also be there. Is that okay, or is it confusing?
Sir, just wanted to clarify, will it be probability of milk and toothbrush divided by probability of milk, or the denominator would be toothbrush? So that's what I'm not.
No, by probability of toothbrush.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, I hope it's okay, right? It's an interesting concept, right? So every time you look for the baskets with toothbrush, you will also notice milk is there. So if you look for the conditional probability of milk, given that toothbrush is already picked, it will be a high number. Okay, yeah, let me just illustrate that point, drive that point. Okay, it says milk and toothbrush, confidence for this will also be high because milk is such a frequent item set and would be present in every other transaction. So it does not matter what you have in the consequent for such a frequent antecedent. So milk is almost always there in everyone's basket, and therefore if you combine milk with toothbrush or nail polish or mobile phone, you will still find the conditional probability you will get a high value. Okay, the confidence for an association rule having a very frequent antecedent will always be high. All right. So because this is true, this is the reason we need to introduce the third concept. So we have introduced the concept of support, which is the joint probability these two things are purchased. Second is the concept of confidence, which is the conditional probability. And now, because the conditional probability can sometimes not be very reliable, and therefore we have the third idea, which is called as lift. Okay, so let's see how that works. So, okay, now this is a Venn diagram of 100 transactions. Milk getting consumed, purchased, milk only being there in the basket 70 times, toothbrush alone in the basket 4 times, milk and toothbrush together 10 times, and 16 transactions have neither. Okay, simple idea. And here, confidence for milk, given that toothbrush is purchased, will be 10 divided by 10 plus 14. The 10 is the number of times milk and toothbrush have been purchased together, divided by 10 plus 4. That is the number of times toothbrush is picked. This is the conditional probability that milk is purchased, given that toothbrush is already picked. That works out to 10 divided by 10 plus 14, roughly 0.6.
I have a confusion. That is, it's 70 plus 16 plus 4. It should be 90 total transactions.
No, 70. See.
Why should we take that common thing together? Means it should be 70 plus 16 plus 4.
What is the issue? Once again, let me just, I'm adjusting the screen. Yeah. What is it, please? Yeah.
It should be 70 plus 16 plus 4 total transactions.
No. The confidence for milk, given that toothbrush is picked. So given that toothbrush is picked, how many times toothbrush is picked?
It's 4.
No. Total times
14.
Purchased. 14.
Okay, I got it. Yes, sorry, sir. I got it.
Number of times toothbrush is picked is 14. Out of this 14, how many times milk is also appearing? 10.
Yes.
10 by 14, that is 10 by 10 plus 4. That's right. It's written in a very detailed way, and that is 0.7.
Okay, so got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Because it could, if you're not familiar with the concepts of probability, you might feel a little, sort of hassled. So, because I'm not spending time teaching probability, because if I go towards that, you will say, marketing analytics is not happening and all that. So therefore, I thought I'll just combine everything and take in one session. Okay, I hope you're comfortable. Okay, and I think somebody told me that you've taken sessions on probability and all that in other courses. Please, somebody confirm, or are you lost? Can you please give a thumbs up if you've understood this?
Yes, sir. We have taken course on probability and on this diagram also, Venn diagram.
Okay, fine, great. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm getting all the thumbs up now. Great. Fine. So here, confidence for milk given toothbrush will be 10 by 10 plus 14, 0.7. So this looks like a high confidence value. But we intuitively know that these two products have a weak association, and there's something misleading about this high confidence value. Correct? So we know that milk and toothbrush are not items which we purchase together, or we sort of consume simultaneously, or we think about together. So therefore, to overcome this, we introduce the next concept, which is lift. Okay, let's look at what lift is. So lift controls for the support frequency of antecedent while calculating the conditional probability of occurrence of X given Y. This might look confusing now, but I will illustrate it with an example. But let me just say that mathematically, it is conditional probability of X given Y divided by probability of X. Or in other words, all the transactions containing both X and Y divided by transactions containing Y, the whole divided by transaction containing X. Okay. So let me just help explain that a little further. So let's look at this. So confidence for milk given toothbrush will be in the basket is 10 by 10 plus 14, that is 0.7, which we saw in the previous slide. Now, which means probability of having milk on the cart with the knowledge that the toothbrush is present is this, and which we call as confidence. The confidence is 0.7. Okay. If we know that toothbrush is there in the basket, we know that milk is also likely to be there, and we are 0.7 confident, or our confidence is 0.7, or the probability that such an event will happen is 0.7. However, if you simply look at the probability of milk, okay, we know nothing about toothbrush. We don't know what else is purchased, but we simply look at probability of milk being purchased. That alone works out to be 80 on 100 or 0.8. So what it means is the knowledge that toothbrush is also there in the market or in the basket is not particularly helping us. Okay, so therefore the association is not very strong. So without toothbrush, milk getting consumed, the probability of milk getting consumed is 0.8. When we know that toothbrush is also there, it is actually getting reduced to 0.7. So having toothbrush on the cart actually reduces the probability of milk, and so therefore this is what is actually the flaw, because if you look at it in isolation, if you just look at confidence and say, oh, it is 0.7, it looks decent. But however, when you look just at the probability of milk, like I said, milk is a very frequently used or frequently purchased product, and by itself, milk has got a much higher probability. All right. So like I said, lift is calculated by the conditional probability of milk given toothbrush is purchased divided by probability of milk alone, which is 0.7 by 0.8, and that is 0.87. And the value of lift has to be greater than 1 for us to conclude that the association is strong, or the association between these two products is strong. So a value of lift less than 1 shows that having toothbrush on the cart does not increase the chance of occurrence of milk on the cart in spite of the rule showing a high confidence value. So that is the reason we have to look at support, confidence, and lift to ascertain with any amount of confidence that there is a strong association between the two products or two items which are purchasing. Okay, so in actual cases where X leads to Y on the cart, the value of lift will be greater than 1. I'm just trying to make out if it is okay or if it's too confusing. Is that okay? Is the concept okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
great. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So in cases where X actually leads to Y on the cart, value of lift will be greater than 1, and which is what we are looking for. So if we want to establish that there is a strong association between X and Y, we should invariably look for this rule. The value of lift has to be greater than 1. The greater it is, the better it is. So if it's like 1.8 or 1.9 or 2.1, you say that it's a really, really strong sort of association. Okay, so now we know basics about support, confidence, and lift. Let's move on to a problem. Okay, so we will. I have the in the drive. I have this file week 7. It's called Titanic. So please download it.